Hi, these are the top 10 films of 1960. When I say top 10, I mean my personal favourite films of 1960. It's coronavirus season, we're 8 weeks into lockdown, so yeah, let's get on with the list. In at number 10, Late Autumn. Here we have another Ozu film with another similar sort of title, Late Autumn, similar to Late Spring, Early Summer, Late Spring, Late Autumn. And this sort of feels like a sort of companion piece to Late Spring, where in that film we had a father and daughter, and the daughter doesn't really want to leave her older father. This time we have a daughter and a mother, and yet again the daughter doesn't want to get married and leave her mother. We have this strange group of gossiping old men who decide that the daughter and mother should both be married, and through miscommunication and sort of laziness, it all gets a little bit messy. The stand-up performance for me in Late Autumn is Mariko Okada. She plays the daughter's best friend. She finds out about these old men's plans, and she has no problem confronting them and taking absolutely no shit. It's a really good film, and as usual with Ozu, it's very touching. Good movie. In at number 9, The Hole. This French film is based on a true story about a group of prisoners who want to escape by digging a hole. There are some great performances, mostly by non-professional actors, including one man who was actually involved in the real prison escape. The film is really riveting, despite the fact that there is probably, I would say, 15 minutes of just people digging a hole very loudly. We've seen a lot of Prison Break movies over the years, but it's the details in this that make it so fascinating. In at number 8, When a Woman Ascends the Stairs. This Naruse film takes place in the Ginza nightclub scene. We follow Kaiko, who is a hostess of one of these Ginza clubs, and the whole film is really about her struggle to make ends meet. She never has enough money, she never has enough clients, and she's given all these moral choices about whether she should sleep with an old rich man who can set her up in business, whether she should take a loan, whether she should own a smaller club, whether she should just retire, whether she should marry one of her patrons. All of the options in front of her aren't very good, with their own distinct problems. And it's a tragic watch, but very interesting and fascinating about this nightclub scene. In at number 7, Spartacus. This sword and sandals epic feels a little bit dated next to some of the other films of 1960, such as the French New Wave films, but there are some amazing sequences and some riveting action. It was directed by Stanley Kubrick, but he didn't have complete control over the movie, and you can tell, because it doesn't really have a distinct Kubrick stamp on it. Kirk Douglas, who played Spartacus, brought Kubrick on after the first director was fired. Clearly he had enjoyed working with him in Paths of Glory. Paths of Glory is a better film because Kubrick could do what he wanted, but Spartacus still has a lot of life, a lot of tremendous action, and some really memorable moments. In at number 6, La Dolce Vita. Fellini's 3-hour classic follows Marcello Rubini, a journalist in Rome. The film is just a series of segments where we follow him in different scenarios and parties and events. Even though on the outside it can look like he's living a very luxurious and exciting life, he feels quite empty inside, and you can tell that he's searching for something a little bit more. Does he find it over the course of the movie? Not really, and that's one of the fascinating things about it. The film looks absolutely beautiful and really captures Rome in 1960. It's also an early example of paparazzi on film, where these photographers are endlessly hounding celebrities and are always following them on scooters and surrounding them even during tragic moments in their life. La Dolce Vita is a classic of Italian cinema. In at number 5, Saturday Night and Sunday Morning. This British kitchen sink drama follows Albert Finney as Arthur, a heavy-drinking ladies' man who works at a bicycle factory in Nottingham. His goal in life is to have a good time, and the way he has a good time is downing endless pints.
He's downed 8 pints already.
8 pints already? He's having a good time, isn't he?
Bring us another couple of pints here, George.
Albert Finney is absolutely riveting in it. He's both charming and dangerous, hateable and incredibly sympathetic. A tour de force performance from Finney. In at number 4, Psycho. This is one of those movies you wish you could have been there in 1960 in the cinema watching it with not a clue what it was about. The film is so embedded in our culture, it feels even as a little child you grew up knowing the plot twist of Psycho. The film starting off with Janet Leigh stealing money and running away, and we feel we've sort of got a thriller on our hands. When the change happens and she's shockingly murdered in the shower, it's really quite astonishing. It's weird to say a film about a man dressing up as his dead mother and killing people is classy, but this is a classy horror film and it's really, really fun. In at number 3, Plein Soleil. This is the first adaptation of Patricia Highsmith's novel The Talented Mr. Ripley. Alain Delon plays Tom Ripley, a cunning sort of psychopath who murders a French playboy and steals his identity. This is one of the great films where you follow a villain and you hate him, but you're still very anxious and you want to see him get away with it. Alain Delon is perfect as Ripley. He has a cold heartlessness to him. You believe he is capable of anything, and you believe he's always looking for an opportunity, and you can also believe that he can kind of get away with these things. The location photography in Italy is absolutely outstanding. The sequences of them on a sailing boat are so wonderful because you're right there on the boat, on the waves. Plein Soleil is a beautiful, tense and riveting film, really, really worth a watch. In at number 2, Peeping Tom. Well, we're back to the horror genre, and this was a film that was really ahead of its time. We follow Mark Lewis, a serial killer who likes to film the women he murders as he kills them to get the terrifying last expression on their faces. A lot of people thought it was crass and distasteful at the time, but what it's really trying to do is get you into the mind of a serial killer. It shows you that their madness sort of originally comes from a place of vulnerability. It's a film about obsession, about needing to capture things in a certain way. And if Psycho is a sort of Hollywood depiction of sort of madness and murder, this is a realistic attempt, even though it's a very stylish looking movie. Michael Powell of Powell and Pressburger directed this movie, and it basically destroyed his career. It was only years later that the film got a cult following and was reassessed, and people realised what a sort of remarkable study of a murderer this film was. The film is stylish, frightening, interesting, has great performances, great direction. It's so strange that in 1 year we get maybe the 2 greatest slasher films of all time. In fact, 1960 was a good year for horror all round. The Italian film Black Sunday follows a witch who hunts down her descendants and has an opening which is so violent and horrible it will never leave my mind.
I shall return to torment and destroy throughout the nights of time!
And in at number 1, The Apartment. Billy Wilder directed my favourite film in 1950 with Sunset Boulevard, and 10 years later in 1960 he directs my favourite movie of that year with The Apartment. Jack Lemmon plays an office worker who's so eager to climb the corporate ladder that he allows his bosses and higher-ups to use his apartment to meet with women. This leads to him having to stay at work late or hang around in the street as these men use his apartment. The film talks about how they use the apartment and drink all of his liquor and eat his food, but they don't talk about the fact that he has to sleep in those sheets. Oh. Lemon's character is keen on a lift girl in his office, played by Shirley MacLaine. What he doesn't know is that the top boss of the company is actually sleeping with her in his apartment. I don't want to go into the plot too much in case you haven't seen it, but this film is incredibly funny and incredibly touching. It does the wonderful thing of making you laugh and cry. Jack Lemmon is very funny in it, and Shirley MacLaine gives one of the best performances in any movie ever. She's so real and present in the movie, and you can't take your eyes off her. It's a wonderfully touching and funny movie. The Apartment is just fantastic. So, counting down the top 10. In at number 10, Late Autumn. In at number 9, The Hole. In at number 8, When a Woman Ascends the Stairs. In at number 7, Spartacus. In at number 6, La Dolce Vita. In at number 5, Saturday Night and Sunday Morning. In at number 4, Psycho. In at number 3, Plein Soleil. In at number 2, Peeping Tom. And in at number 1, The Apartment. Well, that was my top 10 films of 1960. What did I miss out? Loads. It was a really great year for film. So, you know, what are your favourite films of 1960? Cheers.